Welcome to Fearless, Inspired, and Free, another episode with a fantastic and I'm going to say courageous woman who had decided to make some changes and in her life and go on to write her first novel. And I was so intrigued with speaking with her because we actually had a history. I knew her back in high school. And when I saw that I had a high school alum who had written a book, I was really, really excited for her and wanted to talk to her and hear all about it because there has been some time and space between us. And so I'm really glad this episode is going to kick off March. And March is near and dear to me because it'll be also the year since the podcast started. And I've had a great time and I've heard some wonderful stories, and I do plan on having and listening to more. Also, what's good about March is it's the month of International Women's Day. And so this very week that, you will hear from my guest, Jeaneen Sica, it is also Women's Day that same week. And so it is a week or day or a month for me to raise awareness of discrimination and bias, but it's also to inspire and empower us all to take action and for equality. And there is one part of the book, and we'll get into her book, but there's one part of the book where somebody makes mention of the character and how she's so big on equality. So I thought, how fitting. So here we go. So I'd like to introduce Jeaneen Sica. She is the author of The Walls Begin to Crumble, a novel. And so first, I'd like to hear from Jeaneen. Jeaneen, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate you. I am ready with my curly hair in my Starbucks as a like, getting ready to talk about this book because Maggie had some curly hair, so I can identify with Maggie. So how are you?
I'm good. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to talk with you. It's been so long. So yeah, I'm just on the beginning of this journey. Well, no, the journey to get the book published was very long, but this portion of it where I'm promoting it's exciting. It's fun. And I don't think I realized what was going to happen after. Because it just took so long to get here, and now I'm in it, and I'm just enjoying the ride. It's so much fun.
I'm really glad. And I mean, I don't know the whole writing process and, anything that you'd want to share about that process. I'm sure we'll get into in case there are people out there who are thinking of writing a book and, are afraid or have some fear behind it. And, for me, you address a lot of this in your book, living in fear or, are you living in love? And so there's lots of things here that we can kind of get into, but let's start from the beginning. I mean, because you didn't just get here and become an author. I'm looking at your book actually here, and I've also read and I think you sent me. So let's just read that and get to it. So Jeaneen is a former English and television production teacher. After 10 years of teaching at Curie High School, she left the profession to stay home and raise her 3 children. However, she knew deep in her soul she wanted to be a writer. So while home, she wrote whenever she could find the time, which was not very often. She's happy to announce that her first novel, The Walls Begin to Crumble, is now available on Amazon. So that was your, brief bio that you sent me, but there was also some other things that you're a former Chicago Public School English and television production teacher. When you're not writing, what people may not know is that I've also followed you longer than you've had this book, because I watch you transform rooms. So,
Mm.
for us who sometimes have some clutter, or we don't know how to kind of put things in a space to make the energy flow, Jeaneen is definitely, if you go to her page, really, really good at that. And so that's another talent that she has. And so she also likes trying vegan recipes. So, I mean, the sky's the limit with this conversation, I swear. I mean, you're like the jack of all trades. So let's start from the beginning. So your family life coming up, and where are you from?
So I grew up on the west side of Chicago near the town of Cicero. It's this little neighborhood called the Island. 12 blocks radius, like the whole neighborhood is 12 blocks. So it was 4 blocks east and west and 3 blocks north and south. And within that area, I had cousins. My grandma lived downstairs. We lived upstairs. My aunts were, a couple blocks away. I went to a Catholic grade school where I had a cousin in almost every class. Some were doubled. And these were like my mom's cousins' kids. So the neighborhood was just full of family. So that's where I grew up. This is where we met each other. First I went to Trinity for 2 years, and then I went to IHM. Graduated from there and went to Illinois State. And I will say, so this is like something that I wasn't a reader. I wasn't a writer. It was, I would read the Cliff Notes. I would listen in class, and I would pass tests, and I would do well in them. I was really good with the discussions and, absorbing the information, but like actually sitting and reading a book, it was just not. I was working, I was hanging out with friends. It just wasn't something that interested me. Then I went away to college and opened up my world to a new group of people. Because I had been in a Catholic school from grade school through high school, I almost didn't even realize there were other religions that, were out there. I mean, I knew of them. I didn't meet many other people,
Right.
and it just really opened my views and my outlook on life. It was, so college was huge for me. My junior year, I did a study abroad program in Florence, Italy. And I was there for a summer. And there was a classmate of mine who said, here, I want you to read Pride and Prejudice. I think you'll really like it. And I've been compared to Darcy. I kind of liked him. And so I was like, oh, all right, I have time. I guess I'll read. And so I started reading it. And I wrote a postcard home to my parents. And my writing had been so much better than I had ever written before. And I was walking down the streets of Florence, and I was making connections because of the book, because it was based in England and I was in Europe. And so in my head, I was like, wait a second, this is what happens when you read. You feel connected. You can make connections to the world, to places you've never been, to characters, and so that first book and was what like really, launched my love for reading. And I came home and I just started reading classics. I just went back and I was like, well, those teachers must have known something,
When they were telling us to read it, it was for a reason, but
There was a reason behind that,
maybe they were smarter than we.
Yeah, right?
Were,
Yeah.
right?
So wait, I shouldn't just like go and hang out with my friends and, I should actually be reading once in a while. So I did. I went back and I just read a ton of classics. And then I was just like, I loved it. I loved reading. I wanted more. And then I graduated. I was not in education. It was in broadcasting and sociology. And I started working, but my heart and soul really wanted to teach, because I wanted to grab kids and get them to love reading, because it can make such an impact on your life. And it's a skill, and it's something that you will use forever, and so then I went back and got my master's at UIC in education in English as my focus. That's when I got the job at Curie High School, and I knew I wanted to teach in the city because I felt like those kids were very similar to me. They probably didn't have an interest in reading, hadn't gained all the skills they needed, or weren't encouraged enough to do it, or really thought that, that's a waste of time.
Mhm, mhm.
So I I sought out teaching in the city, and I got the job at Curie, and the the teachers that I taught with were amazing. And I had a mentor my first year of teaching, where every day our eighth period was off. And there were three of us that would sit and just hash out our units and how do we get these kids to become better writers? How do we get them to become better readers? And they had, the two women that I was working with had gone through the University of Chicago's teaching program, a master's program, and they just were so good. Like I was learning, I was like getting that education as I was, teaching. And
Yeah.
they were teaching me how to break down just to like these building blocks so that it was attainable. And so then as I was teaching and learning about writing, I was becoming even a better writer. So it was through that. I moved on to teach television production because that position became available. Excuse me. And that again was storytelling, visual, using visuals to get your story across to your audience. My major focus with that program and with the students was you need to evoke emotion in your audience. And how do you do that? And we looked at, well, you do it through the story that you tell, you the music that you use, the angles that you use, the shots that you use. And while we were doing that, and I was critiquing movies and television and books, again, I'm getting this kind of like file of skills and an understanding of how I could create art and create, material that would also evoke emotion in the audience. So then fast forward, I have my third child and I had 3 kids, 4 and under, and I was working full time. Yeah. And it was not manageable to work full time, go to the city, have these 3 kids.
Yeah.
So we made the decision for me to stay home. And then I stayed home. Moving on from there, I couldn't stay idle. Like there was a passion in me to still do more. And not that raising my children wasn't, fulfilling, but I knew for me, I needed more.
Mhm.
So I would substitute teach. And during those periods, because I was subbing for middle school, I'd have 3 prep periods that the teachers have, but I didn't have anything I had to do. So I thought, I have this story. I think I should maybe just kind of start writing, and I would write scenes, and I would sit at the computer while I was subbing during a prep period, and I just start like writing some scenes. Then at one point I looked and I go, oh, I have about 50 pages worth of this story so far, and I've never written 50 pages of anything. And so I go, okay, well, I guess I got something here. Maybe I should keep on going, and I took a little online course. Then I got, I think, to like 100 pages. And it was just, I was like, wow, thoughts are becoming sentences that are getting onto the computer that are becoming pages. And it was, incredible to just see it. Then there was a point, and I say this to many people, where I had to stop thinking of it as this like little pastime that I was doing, this little hobby I had. And I had to say, you know what, I'm a writer. And so I would go to the local, well, now you have a brew point. We have a brew point. I'm in Elmhurst, so we have a brew point. There's one in Oak Park too.
Yeah.
So I'd go to the brew point and I'd get my laptop out and I would I was like, I'm going to write. And I would sit there, and there were other people that were there. And again, we talked about energy before we started talking, but there's an energy when you're in that space. I'm out of my house, I'm among other people, but there's this vibe, and I'd put my AirPods in and I'd start writing. And I did a lot of writing to music too. Like and I'd play songs over and over again that I felt were really working with that scene.
How do
so that
you,
I can,
how do people write and do something and listen to music? I really, I can't. I have to have complete silence. So
yeah.
that is a gift. You got this going on, you got your thoughts going on, you got your writing going on. It's okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, no. Yeah, for me, it would put me in a mood, like it would set the mood. But again, that goes back to my television production. And I'd be like, okay, guys, what mood are you trying to get across? What music would you use behind the scene, to get that mood across to your audience? And so once I decided and called myself a writer and devoted the time to it, then that's when I got across the finish line.
I love
Um,
I love that. I love that you said I have to say it. I am a writer. It's no longer a hobby. It's no longer something I'm kind of dabbling in. It's no longer I am a writer. And once you made that decision, you kind of were propelled forward. Like this is it. The universe kind of said, you are a writer and opened the path and kind of cleared it for you to go ahead and do those things. Now, obviously, you had to make some adjustments, like you said, kind of find a space to do that in. But to me, it sounds like you made it known to the universe what you were, and the universe made it happen for you. You know?
I completely agree. I do. And I had to have confidence in myself and go, okay, you know what? Like you talk about it, you say you're writing. I would say, oh, I'm writing a book. And it would always be like on the side, I was doing the decluttering and the design work and I was working that. I was making money and I was creating that business. And then I'd be talking because I was always talking to my clients as I'd be in their home, which is one of the best parts about that business too, was meeting all the clients and going into their homes and making their homes more comfortable and aesthetically beautiful. But while I would be there, I'd say, oh yeah, I got this book that I'm working on. But it was always a kind of a side.
There's
And
no
what,
energy behind that. There you did you not no real like
like,
belief.
exactly.
Would it so it's no real belief that you were writing a book, but you had the ideas and you were doing some writing.
Yeah, yeah. And so I had to really like look inside myself and go, okay, so because always when I would look at my future or think about the future, it was always that I was gonna finish this book and be a writer. But it was when I would talk about it, that's not what I was putting out because I also I didn't want to have people, I don't know, I didn't, what was, why wouldn't I do that? I guess that's a good question for myself to think about. Like I didn't do it because I wasn't confident enough,
Yeah.
and I didn't know if it was going to go, and I didn't want to over over talk and under deliver,
A little
over
fear.
promise and under deliver.
Yeah. Was there a little fear too, or a little thought about what people would say or think, instead of you just saying, I'm a writer, this is my craft, I'm going for it, and my audience will be there. Sometimes we have certain people or certain groups in mind. We're like, will it fit into, and we just have to sometimes take that road and those folks will come, right? And be okay and be confident enough to say, I'm jumping out there. And that's why I love this podcast, because I get to talk to women and hear about that moment when they were like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. Yeah, this my past doesn't dictate my future. I thought I was I thought, oh, I kind of like writing, but I am a writer. I'm gonna do this. And I'll just have to say, I read the book and I really enjoyed reading it. I really, really did. And like I posted about it yesterday because I had a layover flight, and I was thinking to myself, I'm in the airport and I'm reading some of these parts. And 1 minute I'm like dabbing like the corner of my eye, and then I'm looking around like these people are gonna think I'm nuts. And the next minute I'm like, and they're like, what in the heck is this lady reading? So let me just make very clear that at least you have one person who really had an experience reading it. And I don't know if it's because I'm from here. I don't know. It's because I had, I feel like, and I don't know, we're going to get into that. I have some questions for you about your characters, but your main character, Maggie. My first question though is a novel, a book. Is there really a difference? Or, I like to know, because is it just preference, because I didn't want to say, oh, I did say in my post, congrats on your new book, but then I was like, should I edit that and put novel? I really don't know, because I'm not in the writing space. Is that something that is really something we should think differently about?
It was my editor that was like, you need to put that it's a novel on the front. And I was like, oh, okay. So like for me, no, I didn't see it. I interchange those words all the time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call it a book, you can call it a novel. I don't see the difference. So
Great. So I have that done.
well, maybe because it's not, it's fiction, and so that I think puts it in that category as well because
Yeah.
it's a fiction book.
And I like that you kind of left the door open there. I mean, I I was going home like, I was really ready to just keep reading, so, and we won't go too far, but so as far as your characters are concerned, of course, your main character, Maggie, I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know if it's because I'm from here, from here, and these are familiar spaces and places. I don't know if maybe I kind of took myself back to high school and was like, there's some familiar themes here. There's some things I see. I don't know if some of the teen stuff I saw from myself, or I saw from my daughters who are both adults now. I don't, and I don't know if a piece of you, what I read in this, so, when you were forming these characters, did you take people, but a lot of people, to make these characters? You talked about your mentors in Curie, and you talked about you, and you talked about, this story. How did you come up with this, and where did you draw from these characters? Because you did a good job, in my opinion. Making us know them. Okay. And even some of the ones you didn't develop as much, but they were kind of like your support folks, your core folks, you develop them well. I feel, and I feel like I could identify, or I could put my mind on some of them. So tell me how you develop those characters.
So some of the characters, there's nobody that's like, this is somebody I know, and so I'm gonna write them. For her, she is not me. I was an English teacher. I did teach at Curie. That's where she is. I did not have a breakup, and none of that did happen for me. But so it's so funny. I tell people this. I'm like, I would walk my dog at times and go through the scene that I was really thinking about. And in my mind, I would be like, how would I react to that? How should she react to that? Like, if somebody walked in and did this, or she encountered this person, like, what would be that reaction? And so I would kind of think about what I would do, or what me at 27 might have done if I had this, experience beforehand, and who I am at that point. And I'd like have conversations. I bet you people thought I was crazy because I would be like walking my dog, and I'd have the conversation. And what would she say? And what would he say back? And how could I create? Because again, I would cry sometimes. I would cry as I was thinking of these scenes, and how would they talk to each other? And what would he say? And what would she say? Because I wanted to evoke emotion. And I feel like that's where people get connected, is because if you're evoking an emotion in the reader, then they are feeling something and they're connecting to your characters. So I, like Johnny in the book, was like all the guys I grew up with, right? Like goofy, funny,
Yeah.
not appropriate at times, but never offensive. And I never felt, like just those jokes those are the people that I knew, and not one specific one, but we had so much fun with those guys,
Yeah.
I mean, my husband was one of them. And we, hung out, and these jokes back and forth were always just because it's familiar. And so they can make those jokes,
Yeah, and it's so funny because Johnny, you post a couple questions at the end, for book club readers, and so I went through them and answered them, and I really started thinking of characters. Now I know these are 20-something folks in this book, but I'm not. So I had to put myself, I'm like, so your actors, I'm thinking, who would this one be and who would that one be?
Yeah.
And Yanni actually gave me a Vince Vaughn vibe, like
Oh,
so fun, wedding crasher fun, like just really inappropriate, you'll say some things and you're like, really,
right.
and I was like, oh my God, he's so funny. And, so I thought about that and I went through all of the characters and kind of gave them like an actor, and I said, Dana, remember, like these are 20 something. So all my actors are like 40,
Right, right,
50.
right.
So, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's oh yeah, this is, so if
Right.
you're ever interested, I've named
Oh, I
them.
want to hear. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I have named them all, pretty much. So yeah, it's good to, so I think sometimes too, when people read books, they tend to think that this is all about this person, and so I like that you said this is a combination. This is everybody. Everyone is in this book, and I will tell you that some of the scenes I found so entertaining. Dinner and those babies. I love them. And so I just felt myself really in it. And when you say you wanted to kind of draw some emotion, you it wasn't even just from the characters. When you went to coffee, I'm like, I could literally feel the Starbucks steam and, the cup, because you do look at your cup and you do hold it and you do like savor the, so I mean, even some of the things we take for granted in the day, you kind of got us to focus on them in this sun coming through. And just, there were a lot of places that I was like, this is really cool how she just brought this whole little thing to life, where we just kind of skip right on by it every day. So I did appreciate that about the book. I listened to you talk, and I kind of want to go back so that the listeners understand that writing is a process, and that if you want to be a writer, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you are always the best writer and a writer from the beginning. You can decide that, what, this is what I want to do. And if you put your energy towards it, because where you put your energy, it grows. You had decided to put your energy towards that because you had a tugging, a pulling that, this might be it. And I thought it was so great that you didn't even discover how great a book was until later, until you've gone to college and then you're living your life and you're having all these experiences, and boom, there you go, someone hands you a book, happens to be a little cute, you know what I mean, and here you are, like, I love this book. I identify with, I'm walking down the street and I identify with this book. So you decided, you put energy towards it. See, I wrote some stuff down, so I have to right here. First, you said that when you read, you make connections to the world. So you had decided, man, this book was so good, and now I can see it in everyday action. And you also had some experiences from when you were a teacher in TV production and things like that, that you were coaching and mentoring and teaching the kids. You have to evoke emotion. So you found out that books do that, and you taught them that. And I just, your whole evolution, your process to me is really good. And then it culminates with you saying, I am a writer. I am this. And these I am statements, we all know, if we keep saying them, we will believe them and we will be that. Okay. And I do these with my grandson all the time. I do them. I get him in the mirror. He's little, he's 18 months. And I go,
By the way, he
I
is
am.
adorable. So cute.
Oh my God, girl, I just love them. And I'm like, I am handsome. I am smart. I am kind. And he loves it. He has no idea what I'm saying, but he loves it, and it will be if we can get him. So I just loved your process. And then the fact that music is a huge part of you, and the emotion and the creativity. So having someone find, what is it that stimulates that, right? And you were able to do that, and you were able to do that. So now that you have gone through writing this book, it's out there, you're making the rounds, you're talking to everyone. how does this feel? How does it feel to be an author?
Yeah. Again, I had to now look in the mirror and say, I am an author. I am a published author, which for a while, for 2 years of editing it and going through the process and formatting it for ebook and for print, that was a 2 year process. Only because I went a different route in the beginning. I was trying to get an agent and go through normal, like the big publishing houses, but you have to get an agent first and you send out query letters. And that process takes a long time. And then I got in contact. So it's interesting because as I was listening to some of your other podcasts, I had gone to a medium after I had finished my book and had gone through an editor and was starting to send out query letters. And my mom had passed in February, and I met with this medium in June. So this is all 2021. And so we're talking, and I said, I was really just wanting to make sure my mom was in a good space. And, that was my primary reason for going. But then she goes, do you have any other questions? And I said, yeah, do you see anything with my book? And she goes, oh, that's why you're here. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, I wrote a book. And I said, oh yeah, I do. She goes, here's this woman's name. She will format it for you. Just self-publish it. Stop going through all that stuff that you were doing. Like it's, yeah. She goes, so here's Myra's information. Contact her. She is great. You'll love her. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I reached out to Myra, and then Myra what became then my writing coach, my editor, the woman who formatted my book and got it ready for publication. She gave me so many pointers, and she, went through every chapter, and I did revision after revision. So when you say that it's a process, I completely 100% agree. Like I thought it was done and I was ready. And then she's a published author, and she looked at it and said, well, I would do this, I would do this. And I went through again, and 6 months worth of editing, worked on it, because when I talked to her, I said, you know what, Myra, I want this to be the best version of this book that I can put out there. And if you're saying, and what she was saying and the comments she was making, I was like, these make sense. And I know if I make these corrections, if I do these edits, it is going to be better. And so I went back in. And so even when I thought I was done, I wasn't done at that point. And I worked on it for another 6 months. And then I got it to the point where she formatted it. It was ready to be published. And I went the self-publishing route. Yeah. So with that being said, I don't know which one is better. I am so new to this. I'm just working, the different outlets that I have. Social media is so great. I jump at any opportunity I have to appear at places. I've booked book clubs. I'm on your podcast. I just did a book signing. So I'm just kind of like So it's this part of it right now is hustling to get the word out. But yeah, it was definitely a process. It took a long time, but it also wasn't where I was overwhelmed and it was, I was at it all the time. I did it when I could, and I never gave up on it. And in this last, stint that got me across the finish line, that was where I really was putting a lot more work into it, because I was sitting at the computer, and just all of the things that she suggested were not just like, oh, you need a comma or you need to change this word. It was, she seems a little, weak in this spot here. And I would have to rewrite,
Yes. So it is a process, and people need to know that this isn't automatic. So you made a decision, you kind of went for it full steam ahead, but that didn't give you, immediate results. There was a process, and then you were on the track, it sounds like, and then went to this medium for another reason. And here we go again with the universe. And I said that the universe opens it up for you. Now you went to this medium for a different purpose.
Yeah.
Here she says, here's what it is. And you know what I love about that too? And so let's give kudos to her, is that another woman put another woman on, right?
Yeah.
She didn't save that information for herself. She said, you know what? Here, take this information. This woman can help you get to the next next space. Now, and that is what I celebrate. I celebrate women empowering, helping, lifting women as much as we can. And obviously, you know, if there's anything I can do to help get this out there for you, I'll do that as well. You talked about self-publishing, so I just want to touch on that for a second. What is self-publishing? What does that mean? What does that look like for someone who is kind of thinking and pondering writing a book?
So Amazon has a great platform. It's the KDP publishing, and you format your, so that's where Myra came in, is I probably would not have been able to like get it into the print version that it is. I would have gotten something out, but she definitely made it look professional. She did things like, okay, so do you have your acknowledgement pages? And I was like, oh, okay, I have to do acknowledgement. So this is when I think it's over. It's not over, because she'd come back again. She'd be like, so what about book club questions? You should probably have that at the end. I'm like, okay. And then I'd go and do that. And then she'd say, okay, and you need it about the author. And I'm like, oh my God, all right, I got to go back in and do that. So that part of it was where she is great. And I would suggest, you know, and you do have to pay for it. That's where I had to put some money in, because I needed her, and you know, she's not free. So I did put money into having her format my book, and I also put money into having her critique and give me a lot of feedback. So then she did all of the work for me as far as getting it ready for, you know, self-publishing and Amazon sale. And then, you know, I created that book cover because again, this was okay. So I could reach out to people. It was going to be another amount of money that I was like, I can't sink any more money into this book. You know, I was doing my design work to pay for my editing and, you know, everything I was putting into this book. So I said, I think I can just get on Canva and make my own book cover. And so I did. So I worked on Canva, I created that book cover. So then it was ready. But it came back a couple of times. Like Amazon was like, sorry, your book, you know, the cover needs to be a little bit short. You know, they gave me like 2 different times. They came back and said, not ready, you got to revise that. And I was like, ugh. But then it was so rewarding when because I would look, because it's like a 72-hour lapse when you send it in again to be published. And I was like, okay, I guess, I mean, if it doesn't work this time, I am going to have to spend the money. And, you know, it's going to be a substantial amount of money to have somebody create that book cover. And so then the one morning I wake up and it's like, congratulations, your book is ready. And I was like, oh, you know,
and what
ready.
You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And I just think too, like I had really been talking about, you know, you talk about it, I was talking about it. I had this book. When it was actually ready and could be sent out for people to purchase and read, and I was sharing it, then it was like, oh wait, yeah, now people are going to read it and they're going to review it. And they're like, I'm putting a piece of me out into the world for people to like critique and read. And that got to be a little scary, I will say.
So that's a good point, because so one thing, writing a book isn't for the faint of heart. And 2, you never gave up. 3, it is a process. And 4, to write a book that really is going to be authentic and something that really is meaningful for you, you have to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You have to be okay with being vulnerable, right? Because there's a piece of you, whether it's 100% you or pieces of you or you have to be vulnerable. And so, you know, our listeners have to know that if this is something you want to do, Jeaneen has done it. She has walked you through. I can't even, you need to do a workshop for all these books. So I'd certainly come. I've always thought about it, but I'm like, oh man, you know, so when I saw this, I was like, man, this girl, you rock. And so I'm really, really, really proud and excited, proud to know you, excited for you. Oh, and so this book, I had some, I know I don't want to give too much away. I just want to tell people that get this book. I mean, anyone who has been in life and been in relationships and have friendships, and I love the friendships in this book. book. I mean, they are so good and they are so true. And one thing I thought about is the friendships in this book, because there's some longevity to one of your friendships. And I still have my same, there's like a core group of friends and we have been friends since we were 9. And I don't see that today. Like the kids today don't have those long, relationships that they truly do know you and they truly love you. However, whether you're a mess, whether you're not a mess, you're good, you're bad, you're up, you're down, those are your buddies. And so that's another thing I can identify with in this book. And so, like I told you, if someone wants to laugh, if they want to cry, if they want to have some flashbacks from high school days, if just all of it, and the walls begin to crumble is fitting because they're not. It's what's so good here is that the main character, there's walls crumbling, but if you look at even some of the others, there's walls crumbling, and I like that, like you said, like I said earlier, that you left us kind of wondering that, so I'm waiting to see what, as an author, you do next. And one thing I thought about, because the question you pose to your students, well, not you, your character does in the book, and it revolves around fear and it revolves around, suffering and all of those things that we do in life. It made me think of the book, No Mud, No Lotus.
I know, I wrote that down.
Han, right? No mud, no lotus. So if there is none of that,
Right.
how do you grow? And so I think there's many lessons we learn. I would recommend this to anyone, and I don't think it's the last time we've heard from you. I'm really, really excited. Now, what I want you to know, what I want you to do now is please tell everyone where they can get your book, where they can reach you, where they can follow you, so that we can get you going and build.
Thank you. So the title is The Walls Begin to Crumble. It's available on Amazon. So you just punch in, Walls Begin to Crumble, Jeaneen Sica, and it'll pop up for you. You can follow me on Instagram, Jeaneen Sica Author, and I have a website, JeaneenSicaAuthor.com. So that's where you can find me.
Yes, and it is Jeaneen, Jeaneen, because as you and I were talking about earlier, I have a friend, Jeaneen, and she's Janeen. So Jeaneen Sica.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for coming. And for all of you, you have Jeaneen Sica, author, published author, and mother of 3, dog mom of 1, wife, designer, creator, creative, just a wonderful person. So Jeaneen, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it.